This is the Vacation Rental Success Podcast, keeping you up to date with news, views, information and resources on this rapidly changing short-term rental business. I'm your host, Heather Bayer, and with 25 years of experience in this industry, I'm making sure you know what's hot, what's not, what's new, and what will help make your business a success. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Success Podcast. This is your host, Heather Bayer, and as ever, I am super delighted to be back with you once again. Have you ever looked at your website and thought, this looks fine? So why aren't we getting more direct bookings? Everybody's talking about direct bookings, but we're not getting them. And you might be running ads, you're posting on social media, you're sending emails and people are clicking, but somehow the bookings just aren't converting the way you expected. Today's episode is all about that gap, the space between generating demand and actually turning that demand into confirmed bookings. So I'm delighted to be joined by Amber Knight today. She is a strategy and operations executive with deep experience in vacation rental marketing and technology. She currently leads Bookings Cloud, where she works closely with property managers on automating ads and driving direct bookings. What I love about Amber's perspective is that she's right there on the demand side. She sees what happens when the marketing works beautifully, and she also sees what happens when a guest lands on a website and something doesn't quite click. And that's what we're going to unpack today. We're talking about the real world stuff, what travellers are looking for in those first few seconds, what quietly erodes trust and what builds confidence, and what simple improvements managers can make without rebuilding their entire website. And of course, we'll also touch on how AI and new search tools are changing the way that guests find us, and what that actually means in practical terms. So if you've ever wondered whether your website might be the weak link in your direct booking strategy, this episode is for you. Let's get started. So I'm super delighted to have with me today Amber Knight from Bookings Cloud. I am quite sure that Amber and I have run across each other at some point over the years at conferences, forums or things, but we can't quite remember. So whatever. Amber, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. And if this is face-to-face for the first time, this is great. And thank you for joining me.
Yes, thank you, Heather. It's so great to be here.
So you are from Bookings Cloud. So we're going to be talking about that a bit later on, but I'd like to start off by just asking how you got into this industry. It's the question I ask every guest because I love the stories that come out of this.
Yeah, my stories are both very long, and it's interesting, as everybody always has like unique stories of how they come into this. My dad had vacation rentals when I was growing up north of Sun Valley, Idaho. And so I was involved in that, and I remember going from fully analog, having a tape chart with highlighters, to implementing QuickBooks, which dates me a little bit, but that's where I am at this point. And so really was doing that growing up. And then after college, I had a friend who we had both gotten married, we had babies, and he came over and he was talking about a new business that he was starting and input about it, and we were talking about the names. And I really was very adamant that nobody would be able to pronounce Vacasa correctly. So that's really where that came from, of just getting involved with understanding like, oh, this is an opportunity and this is changing the industry. So I'm very attracted to companies and businesses and technology that's changing the industry. And I've been just following that guideline ever since for my career, right? So just working through different things, but built out the corporate development team over there for new initiatives, launching new markets. So really understand the vacational space from technology, software, and being an actual on the ground, hiring housekeepers, writing descriptions, manager as well.
I love that you said tape charts because that takes me back. This was before, it's this before Airbnb and after Airbnb. So that was clearly before Airbnb. So you can go back, which I guess is why you tell me, is this why you love the direct booking side? Because you were there when it was direct booking before Airbnb began to erode all of that.
Yeah, I would say I think this was pre-website at that point, honestly. So I think it's interesting to see just that managers need to own their own revenue. Like, it's their data, it's their properties, they're taking care of them. And one of the things I saw at Vacasa when we were evaluating companies is vacation rental companies are worth more when they have more direct bookings, when they have a strong, resilient direct booking site with lots of returning guests, period. So just the company's worth more, and a manager has more control ultimately when they know who the guests are, they are controlling the price. It's just, we just see this over and over again. Airbnb is now a public company, and their shareholders are their main concern at this point, not the business or the managers or the properties. So it's really up to those local managers to take care of their local properties and look out for the homeowners. And this is a way to do it.
Yeah, and it's so clear that Airbnb are acting on behalf of their shareholders in so many different ways. But I've been such a proponent of direct booking for so long because my business started my property management business started in 2003. And when we sold it in 2022, we were still at 85% direct bookings. But because we started prior to Airbnb coming into our sphere, we already had that build-up of we were always direct booking. So even though we flirted for a little while with this new upstart company that was going to be brilliant for us and brought in online booking, and it was so much fun, but we realized very early on that it was taking away that control that you just talked about. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. So I want to talk about websites and what happens, that whole process when somebody, let's say, clicks on an ad and lands on a property manager's website. What is that person hoping to see in those first few seconds?
They're looking for the property they want to book, right? They're not looking for the homepage or even the search page. And I think that's a big piece that maybe it feels obvious when you say it, but isn't something that people really think about. Every step that a guest takes on a website, it reduces, like, people leave every single time. Just every page they look at, every action they make, they're going to leave. Even entering a promo code, you're going to get people who are like, forget it. I can't find it. I'm going to go somewhere else. So you want them to land the closest point of booking as possible, which is that property detail page, and where they have all the information they need, all the reviews, and it's simple and it's clear of this is the property that I want to book, and that I can trust this company with my vacation. I can trust them with my money, and I can trust that what I'm seeing is going to meet the expectations of what I stay. And so those are the pieces that are really clear of that there's a really clear book now path, and that other people have trusted this vacation rental company, and this is what I'm looking for. Yeah.
So let's talk about trust, because you've mentioned that a couple of times, but how do you get people to trust you? And I've been following Chris Morn for a number of years, and he has been, if you don't follow Chris Morn on LinkedIn, listeners, then you should do that, because he talks a lot of massive sense about trust. He has an ebook out there that is downloadable that talks everything to do with trust on websites. But let me hear it from you, Amber. What is it that generates that feeling of, oh gosh, I trust this? Because people are really putting themselves out there if they are going to commit money to a website that maybe that's the first time they've ever visited it. What makes it trustworthy?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because it's intangible, right? Trust is intangible, and we so much in the vacation rental space, a lot of things have geared towards, if we can't measure it, it doesn't exist. But hospitality, we can't measure hospitality, and that's the entire reason why people stay with us and leave good reviews and come back. So this really does get into that. how do you measure something that is intangible? So one way you can look at this is the site needs to be fast. So we as consumers don't have patience anymore. So you need to make sure your site loads fast. It needs to look like somebody cares about this business, right? So somebody cares about this business. It runs fast. The photos are clear. There's a phone number. There needs to be like, what is this destination? So many times I go to a website and you don't know where this business is, right? You have to know that's the picture of Lake Dorman or something like that, right? So those are really big pieces of not having broken links, making sure that it is just somebody cares and that you can tell that somebody cares. And then you look on the other side, and Heather, I know you love this, but the About Us page I think is critical. If it looks like a private equity firm wrote that About Us page, they're going to assume that they're not going to be able to get their money back if something's wrong. They want to see that this is a professional company that has professional operations, but with a local presence, that there is somebody that will come out and fix the fridge if it's off, but also that it's run professionally in their standardized operations. I think for some reason, branded vehicles build so much trust on the About Us page, like more than anything else does. I don't know why. It's like the single thing. I'm Fred. This is my branded logo, like page. Here's my local team in matching shirts, and we are doing this because we love hospitality. That's like the number one, but also we're professionals. That's the number one way to make this like, Fred's going to come fix something if it's off, and here's my phone number so that you can get a hold of me. That's what trust, a well-run site that somebody cares about, where there's trust there. And then I'm going to say real reviews, right? All 5-star reviews are not valuable anymore. Like thoughtful responses to reviews, I think is one of the number one things managers can do, honestly. If you get a 3-star review and you have a thoughtful response to that, or even a 1-star review and a thoughtful response to that, is actually as valuable in booking as 20 other reviews, because people know somebody cared and somebody fixed it. So just like those things of, you want to go through it with fresh eyes and say, if something goes wrong, one, am I going to get the stay that I was promised? And if something goes wrong, is somebody going to make it right? And that's trust. And that's what all of our guests are looking for.
You touched on a number of things that really hit home for me. One of them was location. And you said, the amount of times you go to a website and it just says, here we are in Lake Norman. So I know where that is because I have spoken to people who have property management companies on Lake Norman. But generally, if you land on a website and you're not actually looking for that location, and it doesn't say where it is, somebody's going to move on, aren't they? They just, I just don't
and AI
know whether
will move on too.
Yeah, and AI. Oh, yes, we're definitely going to come to AI. Secondly, yes, if you go and look at your website, if it doesn't say what state you're in, or even what country you're in, because I remember seeing a website that when I was looking for a property in the UK, and I couldn't tell if it was actually in the UK or not. I came across a site and it actually turned out that it wasn't. It was in the US. But you couldn't tell. So if it's not clear on your website where you are, go fix that. Secondly, About Us, that one's dear to my heart because I post about it incessantly. It's my soapbox thing. I think Mark Simpson mentioned on a post that I did, don't like the words About Us, or maybe it was Richard Vorton. Somebody had mentioned that. But it can be whatever. It could be our story. But you're absolutely right. And I love the idea of photographs of anything that's branded that people would see out and about. Maybe it's your business. It's the sign outside your business. It tells people that you're real and that you actually have a location and visibility in the area. So love that too. Trust is so important. And I want to mention something about reviews, because you mentioned reviews too. I saw, and I wish I could remember where I'd seen it, and it was on a property manager's website, and they had a blog post, and it was titled, "We got a 3-star review." And the post was about the review they'd had on a breakdown in service. I think something went wrong, and they dropped the ball. But they wrote a post about it, and owned up to it and they had the review and their response in there, I don't know what impact that would have had, but for me, that's going to generate a huge amount of trust, so much more, because things happen, things go wrong. You expect that when you're going to stay somewhere, but to actually see that this is how we fixed it and this is how we responded to the review and it wasn't defensive, that gave me such more trust in that company than a whole stream of 5-star reviews would have done.
And yeah, like I remember getting a 3-star review at McCall for a professionally designed like log cabin, and it was no flat screen TV in the primary bedroom and a queen size bed, not a king size bed. That's a beautiful 3-star review to have, right? You can respond, you can take that feedback to the homeowner, you can do a lot of things with a review like that to just show that you're being authentic, right? That you're not perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I spent a lot of time in RV parks, and I'm in an RV park right now. And I remember reading a review of an RV park that said, I'm only giving you a 3-star review because you didn't have a swimming pool. And I think in vacation rentals, we often see those as well. I'm giving you a 4-star review because there was no hot tub, or there were only 2 parking spaces and we were having a party. But those are the great ones to respond to and just show how professionally you respond. So you said that people want to go straight to the property. I see a lot of websites that have huge amounts of text on the front page. So tell me about front page. What should it look like?
One of the things I see is that website designers, developers, they're building for what their client wants, right? And the client's the vacation rental owner, manager, company owner. They have a specific idea of what this website should look like. And then slowly, like, the designer will sell additional bells and whistles and things like that. And they're like, I'm supposed to have this website. I understand I'm going to check the boxes, but I don't really understand the assignment. Why do I have this website? What do I do? And ultimately, and I think that this is really the critical piece here, is to say your website this is a booking engine, right? It's here to drive bookings. It's here to build trust, drive bookings. And when you go to look at your website, it should ruthlessly do those 2 things. And if you've got something in there that's not doing that, it needs to come out. So really, I'm going to say, talking to your designer and saying, what optimizes for conversion? And that's a specialty thing, and I would talk to a subject matter expert about your specific website and your specific market, but how does this bigger hero image improve conversions? How does this booking path improve conversions? What does, like, each individual piece, and if it's extra, I think it needs to go, because a lot of times these websites get cluttered, or we get obsessed with having great videos that take a minute to load. They're not necessarily building that trust. They're not optimizing for conversion, but they look amazing. I ran LiveRes for a few years, and LiveRes really, I'm going to say in 2016, 2017, 2018, had some of the best converting websites in the industry. They were not the prettiest, I will say that. They were very consistent, but they delivered a consistent experience for the guest, and the guest booked them, and they would take upsells on those reservations really well. And those are the things that you want to look at of a website that has a great booking path, that is very straightforward, and that's what you want. And so talk to your website host that's designing that and really talk them through, if this was your website, what would you do to optimize conversion? And you're going to get a different answer than when they're trying to sell you something for an extra $500 a month, right?
Oh, yes.
So
yeah.
That's the general approach that I would take, and because every website is so different.
Let's touch on something you alluded to then, was a website that comes from the PMS versus a third-party designed website. I know when we've got some great website design companies, Realtek Webmasters, ICND, there's some really good web designers specific to our industry. But then there are the Guesties and the Streamlines and other companies that offer websites together with their PMS. What are your thoughts on that?
I think probably there's a lot of benefits to both, right? Because you want to get started somewhere, and you can make those out-of-the-box websites strong. But again, make sure it's a clear booking path. Make sure it's easy to book. I know some of those PMS providers are now charging a direct booking fee on those websites. Mm-hmm. So you want to be really clear and understand, what are they charging you for this site? Are they charging you like a percentage per booking? That type of thing. To understand where that's going, and also to find the right person to help you build a website when you're ready for it. I think everybody outgrows those websites eventually, but out of the box, they really do have benefits. Again, it doesn't need to be pretty. It needs to have a clear booking path and conversions. And they should be able to talk to you about what those conversion rates are across their websites and what you should be aiming for. So those are the questions that you really want to ask, the right questions to make sure that the settings are correct, because each one has 1,000 different setting options, and getting that correct is probably the first step to optimize that. And then when you're ready to move forward, really moving forward with somebody who's a partner and is aligned with the goals that you want to have for that website.
Okay, so let's say you have a website, you're really happy with it, but it isn't converting as you think, but you're also spending money on ads and email marketing. So how can you tell where the issue is? Is it the marketing and the ads that are underperforming, or is it the website itself?
You want to look at a couple things, I would say, is like, what is your click-through rate? Like, how much traffic's going to your website? And that's what Bookings Cloud is really good at. And this is why I'm now in this website soapbox, I would say, as somebody who does not create websites. You send traffic to your website. You're spending money to send the traffic to your website. One, is it the right traffic? Not all clicks are the same, right? So quality is important. But then when they get to your website, where are they going? Are they going to your homepage and then leaving? Are they going to your homepage, searching around for a few things and then leaving? Are they like what is that doing? So if you're getting the traffic to your site and then it's leaving, it's your website. If you're getting the guest to your website and then they're getting to that property detail page of the properties they want to look at and then they're leaving, it means that the listings maybe needs to be tweaked. Listing optimization is a huge thing. Amber Carpenter calls it merchandising, which, like, I love that phrase of, we need to put our best foot forward for each property. And if we're not, somebody maybe is going to be like, I don't know. I think I need that cancellation policy from Airbnb, right? So they go book over there. So if you're getting those things, like, each step of the way, you can see where they're leaving. And this is different for traditional destination markets versus urban markets, where there's a really high habit of OTA bookings. So you have to, it's about gradual shifts and incremental changes. Like a 30% annual increase in direct bookings is 2.5% increase per month, which is really hard to see on a monthly basis, right? So you have to keep, you start looking and you tweak and you iterate in just like this slow, gradual piece. And then in a year, you've got a strong direct booking program, right? So really just pay attention to how much traffic is coming to your site. That's the first question. Do you know? And I'm going to say 8 out of 10 vacation rental managers do not know how much traffic is coming to their site. And then, where is it going? When are they leaving? And that should tell you there's where it's broken in that process. And again, ideally, the right guest goes to the right property detail page, and either they book or they don't there. But they're going there. A big thing I'm going to see that, like, the two big things that have shown up right now is cancellation policy is more restrictive on the website than on the OTAs, and the payment terms. People wanting a firm, like, pay over time or to pay, like, with their friends, all those flexible payment options really are game-changing for conversions, honestly.
Yeah, I'm going to come to, let's talk about it now, and there's that whole cancellation thing. Because I wanted to say, what else should you have on a site that maybe people are seeing on an OTA that they're not seeing on a direct book website? And again, we come back to that trust. They trust the OTAs because it has, what happens if something goes wrong? I'm covered. I've got this guest assurance policy from the OTA. So if something goes wrong, they're going to cover me. And that's what they say. But let's talk about cancellation. Not necessarily the policy itself, but how should it be? Should there just be a policy page that says cancellation, or this is in our terms and conditions? Because I know that's what we used to have on our website. It was just a terms and conditions page, and it was pretty ugly and probably didn't appeal to that many people, but it was, I'm talking 6-7 years ago. So cancellation wasn't as flexible as it is now. So what would you suggest to property managers now that they do with a cancellation page, or where they put this information?
That's probably more in depth than my experience, is one thing I will say. But I will also say that I think it's time for different cancellation policies for different size properties. Large properties probably don't need to have last minute cancellations, right? These properties that sleep 20, you can't book them last minute. So it's reasonable that, and they're also harder to find. So they're more unique, so you can have a slightly stricter cancellation policy on those, because you can't, losing that money is painful. The smaller properties really should be really flexible, because a 1 bedroom, a studio, 2 bedrooms, those ones, they can cancel, rebook pretty quickly. I know there's an insurance company that does, it's called Rome.
Yes, I
Sasha
heard of
Waller's
that one.
doing that.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's definitely something worth informing yourself about, just because it helps you with that flexibility in the cancellation policies. Because the real question is, if your guest can book this on Airbnb with a 0 cancellation policy and flexible payment terms, are they going to prefer that? Because that's what they'll do. And that's a choice. And it's all about understanding, like, if you do this as a vacation rental manager, then this is what will happen, and being aware of that and accepting those risks. And I would say for really large properties, having an aggressive cancellation policy is probably not worth the risk. But with smaller properties, it is. So really looking at that logically and making those individual decisions.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of our listeners are managing their own properties and their own companies, but they're also out there looking for vacation rentals themselves. And I think that is always, when you do that, really think about how you're feeling. Is it making you feel good when you go to that site? And have you looked at their cancellation policy and that sort of thing? But there's some really useful information there. We've got to talk about AI, because I don't do anything without talking about AI these days. So what are your thoughts on what's happening with AI search engines and ChatGPT enabling people to go and find properties and book without going to Google, without looking at directly going to a website?
The first thing I'll say is that the changes in AI, even in the last 30 days, have been pretty incredible, right? So we're going to keep seeing a lot of changes. So this is something to continuously check up on and continuously stay up to date on. I really think that it changes, like, AI rewards clarity and credibility, honestly. AI does not want another aggregator. So this is a huge opportunity for direct booking sites to build that credibility of being a local authority in their markets with clear descriptions of their properties and what's available in a very structured way. And when you can do that, when you can establish yourself as a real person who has local authority, and you have properties that you're taking care of that your detail pages are clear and have all that information, that makes AI have better search results for people who are looking for those properties, that's game changing. And we haven't really had the opportunity to do that before, where Airbnb's had this budget that has just been massive in Vrbo that we really haven't been able to compete with as a local manager. And so it's turning the tables to a very large extent. And so if you put off this, your direct strategy, because you're like, oh, I can't possibly try to compete in Hilton Head with Airbnb ads or Expedia's ads. Now's the time to do that. Now this is the time to reassess and get in there and make sure that your site is valuable. Because again, the credibility of those sites and the value of those sites and the value of your business is going to pay off in spades as you look at an exit strategy or you look at the next steps. So do that now, and it's an investment in your business for sure.
You mentioned listing pages a number of times. And what does a good listing page look like? Because so many operators I know are going straight out to ChatGPT and saying, write this listing copy. When I was in the business of property management, and I used to go out and find properties and come back, and that was the job I hated the most, was sitting there and writing the listing description. And I'd probably I got very flowery about it. I'm a writer at heart, so I would write these reams of information on the local area and never really understood whether I should put the local area stuff first and the property description after. What are your thoughts on that?
This is something that's constantly changing, right? And I'm fascinated by it because everybody wants to know ultimately like the amenity issues, like where are the bathrooms, where are the bedrooms, how is this set up? Does my mom have to walk up the stairs to get to her bedroom? And is there a walk-in shower? Those are like some big things that people want. You want to make sure that's on your page and that's available. But I really think that the listing description, this is your opportunity to differentiate yourself, right? Because there might be 5,000 two-bedroom vacation rentals in your market. And you've got to stand out and be like, this is why this is the best one. And to talk through that, but also to be excited, to be like hospitable, I would say. If you start off with the no's, nobody under 25, no pets allowed, no more than 3 cars allowed. There's nice ways to say that. Use AI to make that hospitality focused, like way to communicate those things. And maybe don't put them up the top. And those are all like personal choices that somebody wants to make. But one thing that came up at DARM, I think Valerie at Perdido Key mentioned was like, she would ask her owner, why did you buy this property? Why is this property special? And she would get gems out of that. I just filled this out so it's a real chef's kitchen. And maybe the manager didn't know this, right? So you send out a survey, be like, help us improve your listing. Why is your property the best one among these 200 condos in this building in Panama City Beach? And they'll tell you something like, mine has the best view and it's high enough that you can see the ocean, but it's low enough that you can still hear the kids at the pool. And they'll say stuff like that. And that differentiates this property from everybody else. So I do think that's important. And I think absolutely run your content through AI. Make sure it doesn't look like AI because then AI won't read it because it won't think it's a human. But just be like, and ask different, and I would ask different models as well. Please score this property listing, make recommendations on what kind of changes I should make, and would you recommend this as the best vacation rental in Panama City Beach? What would you change to make it to where you would recommend this to somebody else? And ask those questions. And don't cut and paste the whole thing. Make manual edits, please. And do it that way so that it's a human-created listing with AI recommendations incorporated into that appeals to the people who want to book your property.
I love that. I love the idea of just going into whatever large language model you're using and just talk to it and ask it to evaluate. I think we're so used to just going in and saying, write this for me, write this blog post, write this listing, that we forget that it is there to help in so many other ways as well. And I would add in something that I'm teaching students on our AI Ambassador program as well. We're talking about building a really valuable knowledge base so that the AI knows who you are. So you feed it all your brand information and just sit there and tell it your story. And then once you've got your story told, you can bottle it or put it in a file. And then any time you go into, let's say, ChatGPT and ask it a question, you feed it that brand voice and it will draw on that to actually write the listing for you.
I have for Bookings Cloud, it's like a 26-page frequently asked questions and how do we answer these that are pulled from transcripts from calls, right? So what are our clients asking? What are the answers that they need? And we're continuously updating that so that our team is aligned and our answers are the best answers that we can give for these regular questions that come up. And it really does help.
I think we forget that valuable information that comes in every single email that you get from a guest is a question. I remember, years ago, hearing from an owner who said, I am so fed up of these guests asking so many questions. And I thought, it's a gift. It's an absolute gift because it tells you what you're not delivering in your website. You're not telling them this stuff, which is why they're asking the questions. But yes, 26 pages, that sounds like a lot. For someone listening who hasn't touched their website in a couple of years, and I know of many, where did they start to make this more direct, booking focus? Because maybe they did build it in the early days of the whole direct booking movement, back before COVID, when direct book day in February was a huge thing, and they haven't looked at it since then. What would you suggest they do to start? What's a low-hanging fruit on that one?
The number one thing I would start with is data. The best managers who are running the most resilient, like growing businesses, they're asking the right questions of their data and of their team, and getting those answers and then acting on those answers and getting alignment around the actions on those answers really is, that's what differentiates a good business from a great business, honestly. Again, talked about this earlier. What does your traffic look like, right? How much traffic are you getting to your website? Where is it coming from, right? What percentage of your bookings are direct, and how much revenue is that, right? So one thing I see almost across the board is that an Airbnb booking is 20 to 50% less than a direct booking, just everywhere. This is every single client we see, we're working through that. So you're getting, direct booking is worth more than an OTA booking, period, right? So you know that. Do you know how many you're getting? Do you know what percentage of revenue that is? And then how is it pacing? Is that growing? Is it shrinking? And that right there is going to tell you a lot, because then you're going to understand like what you're seeing, and you have a baseline, right? To know, am I improving? Is this helping? Is this not helping? Can I tell? And so if your traffic's healthy, but your bookings are low, it's a conversion problem, right? If your traffic is low, then it's a visibility problem and nobody knows where you are. So then you know which direction to go to. Is this visibility or is this conversion? Those are big questions. And then after that, it's the photography. Updating your photography, rearranging your photography, seasonal changes to photography, just rearranging your photos and putting, like when people are booking winter stays, you're putting the winter photos up versus the summer photos. That makes a shift. Like you'll see, I think at Vacasa, and this was a while ago, it was like an 8% like short-term bump in bookings when you would just rearrange the photos. So seasonally shifting that is based on the booking calendar, not the stay calendar. That makes a difference, right? Is it easy to see the total pricing? Is it really crystal clear? Do I have to create an account before I can see pricing? Do I have to create an account to get a booking? What does that look like? Do you have reviews on every property page, right? Getting those reviews over to and you can transfer them to your website. So do that. Make sure if you've got 10 reviews for a property somewhere else, consolidate those, get them on your property detail page, right? Simplify your checkout. Test your site on mobile. That was a lot of things right there, but those are all things, those don't cost anything, those things. Does your website work as well on someone's phone as on a desktop? And those are the things that you need to do. And then just start like asking questions and making these incremental changes before you drop tens of thousands of dollars on a rebuild.
I just want to go back onto data. You talked about data and looking to see who's coming to your website, where they're landing, where they're bouncing off, if they're bouncing off. Now, it's been a few years since I was doing that. It was Google Analytics at the time, and then it went into GA4. Is it the same now?
I'm going to say this as somebody who's in the data all day. It feels like more of a disaster than ever. There's so much information. The individual settings on GA4 right now affect the results that you get. And it's a model. And so they've got a bunch of information coming in. It's directionally accurate, but to tweak it, you really do need a specialist to come in because it's so much. And then you've got Meta, which has a bunch of data, right? And Meta and Google they don't always talk to each other cleanly. Again, settings will get you 60, 70, sometimes 80% of the way. Nothing gets you 100% of the way on this stuff. So you've got just understanding between Meta, Google, and Amazon. They functionally know everything we're doing on the internet. The data is directional, so it will tell you, is your traffic up, is your traffic down? Are you doing better, or are you doing worse? Where is it going? You can track those things. You can get those things set up on Google Analytics. But everybody's got their own little slice, and it's geared towards e-commerce. That's one of the real things that our team's working on is how do you get a holistic picture of attribution and modeling and tracking specifically for vacation rentals, and what does that look like on that guest search, that guest path, I would say. So That doesn't help, I don't think. There's not a surety in any of this. There's not 100% confidence this is exactly like Google is not a tick mark of when it says you've got 1,000 views, that it's exactly 1,000 and they can track that back to those 1,000. They're estimating that, right? So just know that you're looking at these as it's directional data that you're triangulating to get the real picture of what's going on in your business.
I know that we tried every which way to do it ourselves, to go into Google Analytics and figure it all out ourselves. Apart from the fact it was incredibly time consuming. And then we just had no idea what we were looking at, no idea how to put it together. And we did go for outside help. So I guess that brings me on to Bookings Cloud and what you do now. So can you tell us what it's all about and how you can actually help property managers?
Yeah, so what Bookings Cloud has done is we've adapted performance marketing like ad tech from the automotive industry, where dealers were marketing VIN level inventory, and we're in the vacation.
What does that mean? What does VIN level inventory?
Like the VIN, it's the vehicle ID. So
right.
Each individual vehicle, they were marketing that on social media, online, whatnot. And so basically what the technology that we're adapting from, it was like, how do you help a local dealer find their buyers and for a specific property or for a specific vehicle. So when you see and what I'll talk about is like when you're at the late stage of that process of buying a vehicle, you want a black F-150 with this specific package, and then the ad pops up on your scrolling of that specific vehicle that's 7 miles away. You click on that, you figure out where it is, and you drive to the lot and you go buy it. That late stage, you already know exactly what you're looking for. You're just looking for the right one, where you want it to be. We do the same thing at the property level, where we will automatically create ads, and we use data to identify the ad, the photo, the content, everything, to put it in front of highly targeted prospects who are looking for properties that look like that. And then we're setting the data and we're tracking that all the way through your website. So we're fundamentally, we're training Meta on what works on your website. Who's going to go to your website and then create a booking from that, right? So that's essentially that process of sending lots of highly qualified traffic directly to your website and directly to that property detail page so that the guest sees, I have everything I need to see. I can make the decision, is this the property I want? Or am I going to go search around? I now know this is a local manager who has this property. And so that's what Bookings Cloud does.
So this is, when you say Meta, so do you mean if somebody's scrolling through Facebook and then this ad pops up?
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram right now are our primary because I'm going to call it an untapped demand channel where not that many people are marketing inventory, like specific properties on Facebook and Instagram. But 80% of Americans, I do not have the stats on Canadians, I will find that after this, are on Meta, like Facebook and Instagram. Yeah. So we put ads where people are at the late stage of booking and then we track who actually booked this property within 7 days. We can't get specifics because of privacy laws, but we can get responses on how many bookings did you get for that, and we can report back on that. And it's really what we see. The ads work. They work incredibly well. It's like early days of when, I'm seeing numbers of when we started introducing revenue management, and people would see their demand went way up because they were adjusting pricing to what we're looking for. And why I'm on, we're talking about websites right now, is because we send all this traffic to websites and we're seeing markedly different responses to that traffic. And some 20 to 50% of the time, depending on the market, we're seeing people click on the ad, go to the website, look at the property, and then book on Airbnb. And that's just wild for me. And it makes that property stand out on Airbnb. So it's not one of many. It's, I've seen this property before. I'm going to click on this one because I've already looked at it and it meets my needs. So it makes that stand out on Airbnb, but ideally they would just book directly on the website. Yeah. So we've been doing a lot of coaching on how do we improve these websites and a lot of measuring on how do we do that and help managers improve their websites.
I love that. Yeah, I've been on the Book Direct bandwagon for 25 years, so not about to jump off that anytime soon. And I think it is becoming more and more important. Amber, is there anything else you want to finish with before we wrap this up?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a reality check of, do people want to book on your website? Does it make sense? And if it's logical, if it feels great to book on your website, that works really well. And so it really is that. And all of this stuff, it makes a difference. And so I do want to make sure that, we really start owning guest demand. So actually what I would say is guest demand, you can affect that, right? You want to drive demand to your properties, to your websites. And that is not just something that is magic in the air that we can't change. We can funnel demand to our properties. And it's probably time we start taking control of that ourselves.
That is a great comment to end on. Thank you so much for joining me. Where do people reach out to find you? Where's the best place?
Bookingscloud.com is our website, and you can email me at aknight, KNIGHT, at bookingscloud.com.
Okay, wonderful. I will put that information on the show notes. Amber, it's been absolutely great chatting to you virtually face-to-face. I hope we get the opportunity to meet properly in the near future.
Wonderful. Looking forward to it.
Well, thank you so much, Amber, for joining me. That was a really great conversation. And I think what I'm taking away most from it is that our websites just aren't digital brochures anymore. They're not something that we can build once and forget about. They're living, breathing parts of our business. And they need just as much care as everything else in our business, like our guest communication and our operations and our owner relationships. And it's easy to think if I just run better ads or if I just post more on social, then everything will fix itself. But if the guest arrives on our site and doesn't immediately feel clarity and trust and ease, we've made their decision harder, or maybe when I think about it, they've made their decision to leave the site easier. And in this world, when it's so easy to go back to an OTA, we can't afford to make it hard. So for everyone listening, maybe the takeaway isn't, I need to go rebuild my whole website. Maybe it's simply this. Go look at your site through a guest's eyes. Click around. Do they know where they are? Is there a good cancellation policy? Is there a good My Story or About Us page? Then try to book. Notice as you go through it where you hesitate and start there. And for sure, go and check out bookingscloud.com. Go and talk to Amber. See maybe what they can do for you to improve your Book Direct process. So that's it from me for another week. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you, as it is every single week. I hope you go and have a good rest of your day, as I will. And I'll see you soon. It's been a pleasure as ever being with you. If there's anything you'd like to comment on, then join the conversation on the show notes for the episode at vacationrentalformula.com. We'd love to hear from you, and I look forward to being with you again next week.